just in case you didn't know. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Freedom Thinking Community Group. We, in our usual, typical, overly professional fashion, we've prepared nothing. And we thought it would just be nice to see if there's anything anybody wants to talk about and just see where the conversation goes tonight. So if everybody's up for that, that would be awesome. If anybody's got any observations or questions, or what about this, Jen? What about this, Dave? What about this, Dave Hill? What about this, Ange? Anybody, doesn't matter. Just thought it'd be nice just to have an open conversation tonight.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, I don't think we've really had topics for the last 6 months or so. Just things to go in really nice directions when it is more in the moment of what's going to people.
Yeah.
So, Lise, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Well, it was just a funny observation, a little insight. I was sat in the back garden and all I could think of was Remember You're a Womble, that song. And it was just going round and round. I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, remember you're a womble. And I was like, oh, God, think of another song. Think of another song. That's it. Yep. No, it just kept coming back. And then I just thought, do you know what? That's just like intrusive thoughts, isn't it? What we resist persists. And I thought, well, if you want to sing Remember You're a Womble, that's fine. And of course it went of its own accord. And I just thought, just like intrusive thoughts, just let them go and they'll go on their own accord. That was it, really. It was just funny. Yeah, why that song came into my head, I have no idea. But there you go. That's a kick-off.
Are you a womble?
Absolutely. Most of the time.
You forgot though, didn't you?
Yeah, I forgot. But then that's how it goes, isn't it? You forget and then you see it again. And then you forget and you see it again. At the moment, I'm having a wombling Merry Christmas at the moment. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, I shall
mute. Release.
Yeah, all good. Yeah. And I shall mute myself before I come out with more.
No, any more of that stuff, that's brilliant. It makes us look sane.
Yeah.
No, I love that, Lise.
No, I thought it was cool because
it's a beautiful observation as well.
And in some ways it is, as the content is totally irrelevant to the fact it was that song. But if it was something that you would say is your intrusive thought or thoughts that we don't like, then we'd really buy into them. But you're like, this is a really annoying song. I wish I could think something else. And you just didn't take it as seriously. But it is as serious as any other kind of thinking we'd do anyway. It's not serious. But I think because it was so obscure, it probably did wake you up to it, which was cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Lise. Remember you're a womble. It's going to be in everybody's heads. Hi, Rem, how are you doing, love?
Hi, not bad. You?
Good. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, love. We're just saying, this is an open night. If anybody's got questions, anybody's got any observations they want to share, any insights that they've had, or just anything that they think is relevant, then this is tonight is the space for it. So it's very much just an open open thing.
Perfect.
So we'll probably go quiet now, and if somebody wants to say something, they're more than welcome to. And if they don't, then I'm sure we can fill some space. Good morning, sir. Evening. Good morning. See where I'm at today.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Right, I've had a bit of a really rough couple of weeks, which has made me hadn't been noticing the job. You know, the one I was talking about last time?
Yep.
Yeah. I won't go into the whys and wheres, but it's just been a really bad few weeks, which is really strange for me at the moment because I've been going through a really good time. Anyway, it was just an observation that I had. I was really like up in my head, and I wasn't wanting to leave the house, and I wasn't wanting to go out and drive. And it was really, really bad. I knew what on a Monday morning I was have to take my mum to get her hair done. And I'm thinking, I don't want to leave the house. I'm going to stay in the house, because if I go out and I drive, I'm going to have problems. Anyway, I was just in the bathroom getting ready to go out. And I was like, I was really getting myself worked up about leaving the house. And then the alarm started going off next door, in the fella's house next door. And I was like all up in my head about what I was going through. And then all of a sudden it was like, right, I can't wait to get out of this house. That noise driving me mad. Where I'd totally forgotten what I was going through. And then the noise was like, made me suddenly like change my mind, and it made me laugh, because I thought I've had about 2 weeks of like being right in my head about what I'm going through. And then all of a sudden I want to leave the house because I can't be doing with the noise next door. And it was just a change and made me feel totally different. And it made me laugh. And it was just like, yeah, that's how quick it can happen.
Yeah.
You know, the different thoughts that was going through my head. I'm still not right, and I'm going to be driving tomorrow morning for the first time. And I'm a bit nervous about doing it. But I will do it. I have to, because I've got a doctor's appointment. So I've got to go. But yeah, it was just that change I'd like been aware of again, from not wanting to leave the house to wanting to leave the house. So yeah, that was just an observation I had.
That's nice, that, Ange. Sharpening pencil. It's a purple one. It's, you know, I know that one of the greatest things that caused my suffering throughout my life is the idea of permanence. It's a misunderstanding of the nature of reality, the nature of energy, the nature of change. It's obvious life changes. It's obvious. Yeah, life changes. But there was always this sense that one of these circumstances, emotional states, or experiences was going to win out over every other one. Like there was going to be an overriding winner of experience. It was like a battle taking place within me. You could say of light and dark. And dark would always kind of have the prevailing strength. And I was always so afraid of it. I was always so afraid of it. I was afraid of myself. If you really look at life, you'll realize that is ultimately what we're afraid of. And I was always under the impression that somehow a mental illness was going to win. That was my thing. It was like depression, anxiety, anger, and things like that. Perhaps that's going to win out and take complete control of Dave. And so I lived in fear of myself. Unwittingly, I didn't know I was afraid of myself. I thought I was afraid of reality itself. And then coming across this and seeing the impermanence of what we call our reality, seeing the impermanence, not reality itself. That's permanent. That's eternal. Eternal experience. Many, many different experiences, infinite amount of experiences. But just realizing the temporary nature of it alone can change a life. The temporary nature of experience, you know, when somebody's at their wit's end. I remember you walking, we mentioned this the other day, walking through Pedmarsh, where Jen lives. after a really heavy thunderstormy day, and we walked out. It stopped raining. We took dog for a walk. About an hour later, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. You couldn't see this storm, and Essex is flat, and you couldn't see this storm. We were walking around, and Jen was saying, "You could never imagine this being like this, could you? Not given the way it's been today." Like, no, she said, but it's like experience. That's just like experience, isn't it? She said, but why does it look like it's so permanent? Why is that? Why does it look so permanent and that's all there is? I said, because that is all there is in that moment. That is all there is in that moment. Like earlier on in the day, all there was rain and thunderclouds and lightning. But also like the rain, the impermanence of weather. Weather is permanent, but the character it takes on, the flavor it takes on is eternally changing. Now, many people, it's such a simple observation of life, such a simple observation of life, but many people are not aware of that. So just knowing that, Angie's, just being aware of that our reality has to change. It has to change. It has no choice. It has to change. If it didn't, there'll be frozen people just stood frozen. I've never seen one of them yet. Stuck in a reality, stuck in an experience. We're stuck in it for as long as we're stuck in it.
It's like today when I was just sat and I baked in the kitchen, done some banana bread, and my son had messaged me and he said, "Oh, do you fancy coming out for a walk with me and the boys?" Well, the boys are the two spaniels. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I can." No, I don't think I can. It's not too good today. I woke up, so I'm not in the right place. And he said, "Oh, that's a shame." He said, "Never mind." Anyway, I just sat for about 10 minutes and I thought, what are you doing? You're going to be going out with your son and your two grandpups. Just get out there. What can happen? Just go. And I've had such a lovely time with them this afternoon. Just out in this big field running, and the dog, not me, the dog's running, and really enjoyed myself. And I thought myself, I could have just missed this because I got up in my head about how I thought I was going to be if I'd gone out. And it was none of that. It was right near the airport as well, Teesside Airport. We're watching all the planes just taking off. There was about 6 jet fighter planes taking off, and it was just, I said to Dan, I wish we'd had a picnic or something just to sit and watch them, and it would have been lovely. So for me, being in that horrible space, to look what I would have missed if I hadn't gone. So it was lovely. It was lovely just to be with him and the boys. So yeah.
Nice, Ange. Ange, I know you've had a lot of change. I know you've seen a lot of change. We've seen a lot of change within you. Hi, Mark. We've seen a lot of change. Is what you're talking about, is it something new, that kind of being aware of what's going on and then doing something different to what you would have previously just perhaps gone on the first thought? Or is this something you've always done? If you can understand.
I'm not quite with you. What do you mean?
I think we've kind of known you quite a few, like since last year now, and we've seen you on the retreats and we've seen huge change in you. So for you to kind of be stuck in that experience and then suddenly catch yourself and do something different, is that new for you? Or have you always been able to do that?
Absolutely. I would have gone with my first thought every time before. And more to a fact is my world was very small at one point. I couldn't leave the house at one point. And in the past couple of weeks, I've seen bits of that coming back. But it's because I know now that, like today, I question myself. I would have said, right, just stay with that thought, and I'm going to stay in, and yeah, Dan can go off and walk the dogs, and I'm going to just stay because it's safer for me to stay here than go out there because something bad might happen.
And do people live like that, love?
Yeah. And that's how I lived my life when he was on his 16th birthday. It's just a massive regret. I remember getting in the car and driving him so quickly over to JD Sports to get him this hoodie he wanted, and then driving really like quickly back to the house again because he didn't want to leave the house. And it's just one of my big regrets. But now, like today, I'm just so pleased I caught myself and just go and do it. And everything I thought was going to happen to me when I was out didn't.
It's funny that.
So,
So-
yeah, I was feeling my thinking sat in the house before it even happened. No, and then when I went out, it didn't happen, and I had a lovely time with my boys. So yeah, I was definitely like that before, but not as much now. I've had a bad couple of weeks, and I don't know why that is. I just have. There's a lot going on with my husband as well, but we'll get that solved in the next few months.
One of the nice things is you don't need to know.
But also what's so nice is that you're sat on community group, being really honest with us all about it. It hasn't been a particularly nice couple of weeks, and also finding like gratitude for what you have seen and you've noticed it. You haven't just kind of seen that as a small thing, like you realizing how quickly your experience changed with the alarm going off, and then how you could have completely missed out on a day with your son because of one thought that you took seriously, and you saw it, and then you've got gratitude for that. And I think that's the thing that seems to be different for people. It's not that they don't go in and out of different feeling states, and sometimes they do feel low for a while and they don't really know why, but even you seem to have a bit of humor around that, and you're kind of, that lightness it's really nice to see, because this, like we always tell people, this isn't any kind of anesthetic. It's not going to stop you feeling certain things. And I think you get more and more grateful for all of the experiences that we go through, and you learn and you listen, and it sounds like those two insights, and they're not small things for you to have seen,
Because they apply at any time.
and had you not kind of been feeling low, you wouldn't necessarily have had the experience and the learning that came from stepping out of it and doing something different. And I think that's the nice thing. You can start to see there isn't mistakes. We're not getting life wrong when we're having periods of feeling low.
No, nobody is getting life wrong when they feel like shit. That's a really important thing to know. You're not getting life wrong. You're not doing life wrong. You can't do life wrong. You know, I was listening to a Sid talk not so long ago, and I heard him say, he said, you don't lose anything when you wake up. You just gain. He said, you won't lose your anxiety. You'll just gain perspective on it. You know, many people are trying to lose their feeling states. They're trying to lose this. They're trying to lose that. But the moment you gain perspective on it, two things happen. One, your life gets easier. And two, it doesn't really have you. It doesn't stick around as long. I still have all my neurotic bullshit. But like you, Ange, when I'm in the moment, today, for example, I went and saw some of my old friends' dads, mum and dad. I haven't seen them in years. We got onto the topic of medical procedures that are taking place at the moment. And I gave one of them a hug. I was told I shouldn't give them a hug. I was like, okay. He said, but you'd have had the medical procedure, said medical procedure. I said, no, I haven't. personally, no, I haven't. And he told me, well, if I'd known that, you wouldn't even step through the fucking gate. I was like, okay. He said, I think you're a fucking mug. I said, well, that's my decision. That's my decision. That's what I've chosen to do. I could feel my reaction coursing up within myself. I could feel it, wanting to kind of justify myself and quantify it all and give across my point of view. But thankfully, because I had that awareness in that moment, I just said, look, I'm going to leave you all to have a lovely night. And take care. See you soon. I am perfectly aware that when I think I'm right, it's a time to start questioning. But I'm also very aware that what people see as a reality is so real, they wouldn't question it. And I think that's what the beautiful thing about this conversation is. I got to meet a person who was so adamant about so many things in the half an hour, 45-minute conversation we had. Spoke about so many different subjects, and so he was so adamant about how wrong these people are, how right he is, and how this and that. And I couldn't believe where the conversation went. It was like listening to a schizophrenic. Just like here, there, bang, bang, bang. And just listening, and just listening, and just listening. And recognizing myself within that. Seeing my arrogance and getting reflective and hearing how I've spent an awful lot of my life thinking I'm right, and then trying to convince the other person that I am right and you are wrong. Because in all honesty, I don't have a clue what's right or wrong with said that procedure that's taking place at the moment. I don't really want to say it because it just opens up a can of frigging worms that I don't really want to go down. Because I don't know what's right and I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. I can believe and I can have my own opinions, but I do not know. So I don't know what's right for the next person. And I do not know what's right and what's for the betterment of humanity. I do not know. But what I do know is that I found within myself my own gift of free will to make up my own mind, to be strong enough to stand in my own conviction and to go with what I think is right in the moment. And being open for that to change. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of this conversation. Your life becomes far more flexible. I really didn't feel the need to, as much as I felt like coming back at him, I felt like, well, let me tell you what I've read or whatever. I could see it wasn't going to go anywhere. All it was going to create was conflict, and I didn't want conflict. I just wanted to have a lovely conversation with two friends I hadn't seen in a long time. But there's an arrogance, and it's an innocent arrogance. There's an innocent arrogance that is born of not understanding the nature of mind. I've lived it. I can still live it. But I know in 2013, when I woke up to this, it allowed that space that you speak about, Ange, in a roundabout way, in not using the same words as I am, but a space whereby deep within yourself, there is this knowledge that what you have stumbled across in the past is true and real. Perhaps you can't put it into words. We talk about our experiences of life, because what we're actually talking about cannot be spoken about directly. Our essence, spirit, the animating force of this physical body, the magical animating force of this physical body that everybody is. It cannot be spoken about directly. So we speak about our experiences and we tell stories and analogies and metaphors and blah, blah, blah. But there is this part within ourselves that recognizes that it's there. And I was speaking to this man's sister-in-law, and she was actually talking about him. She was giving him quite a hammering. And I said to her, I think that one of the major things that people innocently do is they don't know they're alive. And people will go, of course I know I'm alive. I didn't. I knew I was alive before 2013, but I didn't know what it was to be alive. I didn't know what alive was. I didn't know the magic, the mystery, the majestic, unbelievable, beautiful, loving thing that life is. I had no idea. So I just endured it rather than lived it. And I said to her, and another thing I really feel like people do is they live their life with the fear of death. And because people are so afraid of death, they put it to the back of their mind. Don't want to confront that. Don't want to think about me dying. I don't want to think about me not being here anymore. And so they put it to the back of their mind and they fuck it off. And in the fucking it off, it creates this delusional concept that we're going to be here forever. And we have all the time in the world to do whatever we want. But right now I need to concentrate on, as this man's doing, earning more money, even though he's got more money than most people I know, earning more money. Not aware that his mortality is creeping upon him. And at some point it's going to be too late and he'll never have done all the magical things that he really wishes that he could have done because he spent all his time trying to earn money. I was stuck in that trap as well. I think one of the things that this conversation, this awakening allows you to confront is everything. It allows you to confront death. Realize there is nothing to be afraid of in death. Nothing to be afraid of. And I say this time and time again, but I think it's one of the most beautifully put ways with Jesus Christ when asked, tell us how our end will be. He said, I take it from your question, you found the beginning that you asked me about the end. People don't contemplate, where the fuck did we come from? But they all want to know where we're going. Blessed is he who takes his place in the beginning, for he'll know the end. I will not taste death. We'll just know that this energy cannot be killed. Energy cannot be destroyed. Everything is energy. It can change form, true. Absolutely, and it does continuously. We're living examples of that. I look in the mirror and I look nothing like I did when I was 21. Nothing like I did when I was 5 years old. Nothing like I did yesterday because I had a shave, actually, believe it or not, last night. My hair's grown a bit. It's eternal change, every single cell reproducing itself. Whole new bodies born in, somebody will correct me on this because I know I'm wrong, a few months. Mother's just corrected me, 7 years. Is it?
Yeah, to change every cell in your body.
7 years to change every cell in your body, apparently. Eternal change. Eternal change, eternal change, eternal change, eternal change. And for people who are afraid of change, life is a very uncomfortable place to be. But when we wake up and realize that this fear of change is a concept, is an idea we dreamt up. That concept and that idea, like every other concept and idea and every other reality that we experience or undergo in a lifetime and beyond, it's just that, it's a concept, it's an idea. It's up for negotiation. Like Ange, it's up for negotiation. And when you do start to negotiate with your own life, you start to find freedom, because you realize the only person that's holding you back is yourself. Yourself, your own thoughts. Our own thoughts. It was quite it was an interesting afternoon getting to speak to these people and seeing an absolute adamance that they're correct, that I'm going to die. I said, well, yeah, I am. I am. I don't think it'll be through COVID though. But just an adamance, and then just being reminded for myself when I'm getting adamant and I'm being unkind. Thankfully, I had that awareness in that moment. I could be kind and not be arrogant about it. But I don't always do that. And I think understanding that and having the grace as we go through that, understanding this human life can be hard at times. And why do we go into it, Ange? Why do we go into these dips? God only knows. But there's a beautiful thing I've become very aware of through it. And that is, as I go through these dips of dark times, I've been through a fair few in my lifetime, I can then look back at that subject, or I can broach that subject, and it no longer has a power over me once I've gone through it. It no longer has the power to, that subject no longer has the power to hurt me. It's like we go through these experiences and it's almost like a cleansing. And we become so afraid of going through the experiences, but we don't realize on the other side of the experience, it's like going into hell, finally having the courage to walk through the hell's gates, step into hell and go, oh, fucking hell, there's heaven on the other side of these gates. It's freedom. We're trapped by a belief that didn't look like a belief until it came up, till we experienced it. We fully embodied it as a full-on sensory experience, and the world looks like it's going to hell, or this, that, or the other. And our worst fears, stepping out of the house, scary are things that are going to happen to us. And getting to the other side of it. And once you start to get an eye for this, once you start to get an eye for life is lessons. Life is lessons.
I think also, like in what you've said, Ange, is it could be very easy for us to see this and forget that how often we allow our mood to kind of be changed through external things, like, oh, it all worked out, I got the job, oh, I feel great, and then, oh, it didn't work out, I feel terrible. Like, as soon as we attach our feeling to something in the world, like we generally do then get a lesson from it. And I think sometimes we can see how, and it's spoken a lot, that circumstance doesn't create experience, and we often think about negative things, but it's also the same thing, like a job or a new puppy, or it can't give you feeling, it can't give you experience. There's nothing that has like a string on us. And I think sometimes, like, I know for myself, like if things seem to have been working out and going, like everything's in the flow and things just seem to be working out, then it's very easy to start thinking that you've kind of got life sussed, or those things somehow are creating or generating that feeling. And I think it's quite humbling when you recognize, no, it works for everything. There is nothing that creates or generates that feeling. It's something born within us, which is how the cutest puppy can suddenly become really irritating, and 11 months later you get your friend to take it for you. So that's how Dave ended up with Rusty.
16 years later, he's still irritating.
But you can see like how easy it is to just put our feelings or our experience on something. And I've been speaking to someone since last September, and we speak sometimes a couple of times a month, sometimes we'll go a few months. And she's starting to see how experience isn't where the magic lies. Like, she's starting to get more interested in the awareness, that awareness that's present when she's in a low mood, the awareness that's present when she's like high as a kite, the awareness when she's in fear. Like, she's getting more interested in the awareness and less interested in the experience or the content. And that's different for her, because for a long time I would sit and I would listen to a lot of content, either the highs or the lows of the week or the month. And it's been interesting, because it doesn't matter how many times someone tries to say to you, the content isn't important, that's not the message, that's not what we're talking about. We want you to get a sense of something deeper. And the lady I'm speaking to is religious, so she speaks about God, and it's easy to use that word and it not be taken the wrong way, because she has a sense of God in a really deep way and the perfection of it. And she had the experience of judging her sister's decision to do with childbirth. And she said she got that arrogance, she got that feeling of that she was right and her sister was wrong. And she caught it, and she recognized something within herself, and she realized, hang on a minute, that life energy that's within me is also within my sister, and she can live her life and make decisions. And it's been really cool to watch someone go from being so hell-bent on talking about their experience, and the experience being so incredibly important, to getting a sense that there's something deeper to us and to life that we often think we'll think about once we get all our problems sorted out. And it's really nice to see her. It's almost like she's stepping into her own self. She's making decisions for herself that are actually going against some of her family's wishes. And she's then, I don't know, there's like this wisdom and creativity coming out of her. And it hasn't been through studying her experience and trying to change it, because she's had highs and lows like you wouldn't believe since last September. But that the sense of something deeper to us, like deeper in life, something intelligent beyond our intelligence, that we start not just trusting but knowing. We know it's there. And it is that deep awareness that gets to see and experience all of it. And I think then you do learn, and you often say there's been times where you've gone into really low feelings, and there's almost a part of you that's a bit excited to like, what am I going to learn from this? And I think you do see the deeper perfection in life, and you often point things out to people like, is there a wrong sheep, or is there a wrong blade of grass? Like, is there mistakes?
Does nature ever make a mistake?
But then we'll look at our life and we want it to be different than what it is. And you see, then we'll suffer. Like, if we think things should be different than what they are right now, whether it be health, job, partner, money, like as soon as we think something should be different than what it is, we're kind of going against what is. And we struggle and we suffer that. And I think what seems to happen when we fall into the present moment and just, people talk a lot about acceptance, but you can't make yourself feel acceptance. It's something that comes to us when we find ourselves present with life as it is. And there's a beautiful talk by Sid where he just says, it's when you're observing life as is. It's not saying when you're always happy, or when you feel peace all the time. It's just when you align with what is in the moment, whether that be sadness or grief, and the fear comes out of it, and we naturally allow that change and that movement, and we realize the impermanence of every single experience.
I think experiencing fear without the fear of the fear. I feel fear, full stop. I'm scared right now, full stop. I'm pissed off right now, full stop. I think that's one of the things that really changed for me. It was like the acceptance. And it wasn't that acceptance to make me feel better. It was acceptance of this is what's happening. I still feel like many people come to the principles to try and, as Jenny said right at the beginning, to almost anesthetize themselves to certain feeling states, certain experiences of life. Now, I don't know enough about life to know how to never feel worried, anxious from time to time, regretful, something you may term as negative. But in my lifetime, I was fortunate enough to wake up to something that put it all into a perspective. That's what it gave me. It gave me a perspective on reality. First and foremost, to understand that reality that I experience is coming through me eternally.
Get out.
Oh, it's on.
Get down, Kendra.
We were talking to the dog.
Yeah, right.
Jumping up on the slide trying to get food.
Get down, Kendra.
Sorry. I feel like I've interrupted. Carry on.
Thanks for coming, love.
That's all right. Nice to see you.
Nice to
Nice
see
to
you. Nice to not
Nice
see
to see you.
Nice to hear you. Yeah, to firstly just know that experience, reality, whatever you want to call it, is generated from within. It is a singular point. A singular point within each and every single person on earth and every single living being. It is unspeakable, aboutable. New word. But it lies at the heart of our very being. And it's what creates our experience of life. It works with the body, it works with the physiology. It works with the senses. The human body is absolutely part of this game of being a human being. It's essential. But the body is not essential for consciousness to exist. And I think waking up to that point, seeing that inside of myself and inside the moment I saw it within myself, I saw it within a jackdaw. I saw it within a jackdaw first. I saw it within myself. I saw it within my family. I saw it within my friends. I wanted people to wake up and realize that there is a divinity within them that is eternally creating, and that is who they are. That is what they are. And we're all the same thing. We're all generating a different dream. Every single one of us is generating a different dream of life. This is why we're all dressed differently tonight, and I've got some mad fucking woolly shirt on. It's why Lee hasn't got changed from coming back from work and still got his lanyard around his neck. Oh no, that's your in and out your house one, isn't it? Yeah. It's why we all like different music, we all like different foods, we all like different partners, we all have a different opinion on how rich is rich, we all have a different idea what's right in the world, what's wrong in the world, which political party to follow, should we follow a political party, blah, 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 blah. Should I get the so-called, whatever the hell it's called, and do that, or should I not do that? All these different dreams, but everybody's dream looks real to them, so real they don't know they're even dreaming. They don't know that the same power that generates the dream within the sleep state is generating the dream within the awake state. We assume we must have two modalities of working, sleep and awake. No, there's just one consciousness. And that one consciousness does something. It generates experience eternally. It's not something human beings invented. It invented human beings. in order to experience itself through. And when I say it invented human beings, I don't mean you and me. I mean the body, because we are that invented it. Everything is it. Everything is what? Everything is the same thing. Every single moment is an infinite experience taking place within the whole. There's life and death now. Birth and death are taking place now. Eternally. Creation and destruction taking place. And as our friend Paul said, creation and destruction are exactly the same thing.
There's 2 words to describe the same thing, if it's without judgment.
2 words to describe the same thing, sorry then. Creation and destruction. 2 words to describe the same thing.
Change.
Eternal change. Eternal, infinite change. So when we think that perhaps the weather storm is going to stick around forever, it's not. When we think that we can be destroyed, we can't. The body can, yeah. Consciousness cannot. You only have to look at nature. Look at Chernobyl. Scientists said life would not live there for 1,000 years. It is so populated by life now. And it's funny because the animals have actually evolved to cope with the radiation. Go figure. What they reckon would kill all the animals doesn't. Plants, foxes, boar, all the birds, thriving. Nature just does. We are nature. And it's always perfect, without judgment. Should we have a 10-minute break?
Yeah.
Let's have a 10-minute break and then go and put kettle on. Kettle. Sorry, Colette. Kettle. Go and put the kettle on. The finger. And we'll meet back in 10 minutes and then we'll carry on with some questions because I realise we've just talked a lot.
So it's about 8:05.
It's 7:05.
No, to come back.
No, it's 5:28.
You'll come back at 8:05.
Yeah, sorry.
And if you're in Sweden, I think that's 9:05.
It's still
five-
it's still
five
10
past.
minutes, Karen.
Yeah.
Thanks, love. So, welcome back. Hope you all have got lovely cups of tea. Ours taste of bleach
For no reason.
for zero reason other than I think Watchgate, our local water supplier, is chlorinating the area that we live in. It's a shame that. So we'll come back. Any questions, comments, observations, anything anybody wants to talk about, please.
I'll jump in if that's all right. I liked when you said that we can't get life wrong. There is no right or wrong in it. We're just experiencing what we're experiencing in the moment, and whatever that is, whether it feels comfortable or uncomfortable, it is serving us a purpose in that moment. We may not be able to identify it straight away, but it is. And I've trusted in that for a couple of years now, and there's still always going to be black spots of stuff that I don't quite see yet, and that's exciting because it means that at some point I will. So for the last couple of years, I've been on the cusp of leaving my current job to go and do something of my own, which has been quite exciting to think about. But at the same time, at points it felt uncomfortable. And I thought, well, okay, that's fine. I don't have to make a decision yet. Even if it feels a bit urgent, I don't have to make a decision. I can just let it sit, and because at some point it will all make sense. There's something I'm not seeing yet. So the discomfort was just saying you haven't seen everything yet, to get you to the point where you are comfortable to make a leap and do your thing. Well, that point came up a couple of months ago, and I'm just finishing off my notice period now. And what I realised was the things that were stopping me earlier on, the things that were causing the discomfort, sat in the realm of what happens if it doesn't work. And what changed is I don't care if it doesn't work, because at some point I'll run out of cash, but I will have done something quite cool in the process and learned stuff, and it may or may not work. And if it doesn't work, I can always apply for another job. So, but I could have forced myself into making a decision at any point in the last couple of years, but it just made itself for me. Now, interestingly, at times we will be forced into a point where we have to make a decision in the moment, no matter what, because it is relevant in that moment, if that makes sense. So my decision wasn't of that ilk. It was one I could just let sit and bubble away until it was fully cooked. But it's cool to know that both options are available, and you can feel completely uncomfortable about the decision that you think you need to make right now. And if you need to make it right now, that's cool, because 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be a disaster, and you can change your mind. So I think that's what I loved about your point of we can't get life wrong. We just experience what we experience, and we learn through that on the way. And I think my favorite bit is the fact that I am going to learn something new every moment of every day, whether I see it or not. Sometimes I might have to see it 10 times before the penny drops. Oh, I've done it right. Okay, that's interesting. But it comes in a more light-hearted way than I keep getting this wrong, or why didn't I see this earlier, or whatever whatever baggage you want to attach to it. So I'm just rocking up and seeing what happens until it falls over, and we'll see how it goes.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Davey. We did some work in, was it Abu Dhabi? Yeah, I think it was Abu Dhabi. I always get confused between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. One of those sandy areas of the planet. And it was working with a lad who wouldn't take a job. I mean, his father had a very, very well-paid job, and his mum, the family was well off. Beautiful, some of the most fantastic people I know. But we got to do this intensive, didn't we? At this spa resort in Abu Dhabi. Our job's taken us some free mental places. It was so hot, I couldn't stand it. I've got to go in the sea to cool down. I'm trying to do this work. I get in the sea, it's like getting in a bath. And I was like, it's too hot in here. I'm just melting. But at one point, once I had a bit of sanity, it must have been quite early on in the day. Jen and I took this lad out, and we said to him, why won't you take a job? Why won't you do anything? He said, I don't want to make the wrong decision. And that thought, that belief that he could make a wrong decision has paralysed him.
For 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Smoked a lot of weed and paralysed him. So we took him up and we drew a line in the sand, a long line, like this. I think Emma's just seen this fairly recently. We drew a line in the sand like that. And we said, how old was he? 22, wasn't he? 21? 21. You're about there, possibly in your life. Who knows? Who knows when it's time to depart? But say you're about here in your life. And this is your life, your lifeline. Here's birth and here's death. How many lines do you see in the sand? One. One line drawn in the sand. One life. Now, in that singular, in that singleness, in that singular fact that there is this life now, one. We said, how could you possibly ever know if you were getting life right or wrong? So the only way you could do it would be if, so we drew a few more lines underneath his line there, is if you could have a situation, you could glance across to another life and see how that's going there, or glance onto this life, or glance onto this life and see how that life's going. See, have a comparison. We don't have that luxury. We just have, in this single life, the capacity to create the duality of right and wrong, good and bad, within our perceptual experience.
It's interesting. I do, as you guys know, I do quite a lot of work with veterans that are struggling with their mental well-being when they're back home and safe, which is, you know, is distressing if you think about it that way. But all of them, I haven't found a single one yet that hasn't said when their life was physically in danger and they might die in any minute, that they hadn't felt more alive than in that moment. And it makes perfect sense because they'd given up the prospect that their life was going to continue any further. They had a choice. They could either sit there and potentially die, or they could try and do something about it, and potentially help their mates out of it. And it's really interesting when we're caught up against it, that the inbuilt guide within us gets rid of all the noise absolutely every time and allows you to thrive. It's just funny that when we're home and safe, we allow all of that stuff to come in and sort of make that storm and get in the way. It's interesting. It's really interesting, and it's when you can help people see that where they were when they were in danger, that is them all the time. The only thing different is 9 times out of 10 they've got a head full of thought that's not helping them, that's causing the discomfort. But the complete clarity in the moment of being completely under pressure is available to them all the time, to all of us all the time. It's who we are, and it's wonderful to know that, even knowing that there's nothing we can do to stop ourselves from getting caught up. But knowing that that's how it works, when we catch on to it, we go, oh, I've done it again. I've done it again. I've got caught. Okay, that's fine. I've realized, I've observed, I'm aware of it. Well, let's just see where it goes now. But we spend most of our time going, no, this is crap. I need it to stop. And that's where we get caught out. But yeah, it's lovely to know that the simplicity of what we are as human beings is available to us all the time, no matter how uncomfortable it is, how difficult it is, how dangerous it is, or how benign it is.
It reminded me of, we listened to a podcast by Mara Gleason, I think it was quite a recent one, and she was talked loads about the work they're doing in Chicago, but then someone asked her, is there anything from your own experience that you want to share that's been really powerful for you recently? And she spoke about when she lost her sister-in-law and the 2 children, her niece and nephew, in a car accident. And she said the kindness of that time was that her mind got literally, it was like a vacuum. Everything vanished apart from what she needed to do each moment. So it'd be like, she had a month-old baby. So it's like, feed your baby, go and give your brother a hug. And she just said it was like, it's a very special time for her to remember. And she said it was about a 7-month period where it was just the noise of normal life, and the things that you'd worry about and the things that you'd entertain and bother with vanished, and it was just moment to moment to moment. And she said, I can't remember when it kind of started to fade and I got back into the busyness and worrying about silly things again. But she said to know that that space exists when we haven't got all that other stuff on our mind, and it can show up in ways we don't expect. But it is that kind of, for her, it wasn't her own life, but she saw that, you know, life doesn't go on forever, and we don't know. And it did something for her. And we sat and listened to it with my 14-year-old niece. And she was just like, wow. Like you wouldn't expect that you'd think that something like that happening would ramp up your thinking. But it didn't. And I think you see there is some kind of kindness, there's an intelligence, there's that space built into us. And it's interesting that you're getting to work with so many people that have had the same kind of experience. But then when they get back here, when actually they are physically safe, they can torment and almost be at war in their own mind and suffer that.
It's funny because when you were talking about that, Dave, it reminded us of Jenny and I did a retreat in Kendal, and it was 3 days, and this lady came in right on the last day, which is never a good thing. And she said, she sat there and the room was so quiet. We'd had all the questions on day 1 and into day 2, and then people had started to quieten down. And so day 3, everybody was quiet, and this woman came in after lunch, didn't she?
She came with her friend.
Yeah, and she said, she sat there and she went, "This is nonsense." And we're like, okay. She said, "So you telling me," because we were talking about how it appears as though the external world controls our experience. We're talking about that, and she said, "You're telling me that people at war aren't afraid? They're being bombed, they're being shot at. You're telling me that they're being shot at isn't scary?" I said, "Well, I would imagine it would be. In my imagination, I can imagine it would be." I said, "But I do know friends who've been to war and they buzzed off it. I know I've got friends who said says exactly what you said, Dave. I've never felt more alive. They weren't full of fear. They were full of presence of mind. Not living in the future, not living in the what if this, what if that, all this noise that's going through our head, which we've grown so accustomed to as a species. We've grown so accustomed to it that we think that that's the actual reality. We think the bullshit that runs through our head is the actual reality. The actual reality is the presence of mind that is there. You so beautifully put it, Dave. That presence that is eternally there. When that thinking gets quiet, then you realize what reality is. Then you realize who you are. Then you realize what you are. You realize the perfection of what you truly are. And you see the nonsense of the bullshit that we've mistaken to be reality itself. The nonsense, the noise, the talking, the this, the worries, the anxieties, that we start to mistaken that as an identity. That's called the ego. That's what is referred to as ego. Thoughts. Mistaken identity created via thoughts. Beautiful. Yeah. My mum's just waving. What are you saying?
Can I say something? I had a sort of experience with this because I had a really, really, really bad hip and bad leg, and I'd had treatment on it and this, that, and the other. And I was driving my car back home, and they put bollards all the way across the road where I needed to turn into to get home, and I couldn't get in. And they put traffic lights at one end, so I was in a really bad mood about this. So I had to go about a mile down the road, and I came back, and I stopped by the traffic lights because I had to move the traffic lights to get my car into the road to come home. So got out the car, picked up the traffic lights that were on red, put them down in the middle of the road like that, and drove into the drive. Got out of my car, walked up the drive, and I thought, where's my pain? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? In that moment, there was no pain. There was nothing. And I realised that my brain had got used to me thinking about the pain in my bum, used to me limping along the road, and it had almost become like a habit. My brain set off to walk, and it made my foot flap. And if I thought about walking, that's what happened. If I didn't think about walking, I just walked normally. So where was the pain in that moment? It didn't exist, which was a really interesting observation of how we can make ourselves.
The depth and magnitude of this point.
Yeah, you know, you can think yourself to be ill if you really put your mind to it, or you can enjoy living in agony with a pain in your back. Anyway, it's gone now, so there you go. Didn't last long.
First time Jenny met my mum, she said, "I see where you get your blatant disregard for rules from."
Not the first time.
Was it though?
It's when we went on holiday.
Or was it?
And there's a sign saying, "Do not enter." And your mum was like, "Well, we're not going all the way around."
Well, that's
so
the
we walked
shortest
straight
route.
through. And I was
It's
just
a good
like,
point,
oh,
Mum.
God.
Yeah. There's a photograph, our friend Janet Riley, she's got this photograph. She did it as
Your mum's fifth.
mum's birthday card, wasn't
Yeah.
it? It's a card, it says, be yourself, because everyone else is, you know, it normally says taken. It's got a line through the taken and says awful. Be yourself, because everybody else is awful. And there's this photograph of my mum climbing over this gate with this set which says private, do not enter in it. And it's just bum through and through. But beautiful point. Beautiful observation. You know, when we talk about that singular line, when we talk about this singular life, when we talk about reality, we talk about life. When we talk about reality, we talk about experience. When we talk about experience, we talk about life. It's all the same thing. This singular point is every single ache and pain we experience, every single little bit of thing we dislike about ourselves, whether it's not sleeping, whether it's this, whether it's that. Habits. We go in search of the answers. Why am I like this? And I think Sid found what he described as the ultimate answer. And it is the ultimate answer. Everything is created. Every single scrap of experience is created from mind. This mind stuff is the presence of being. Stuff that Dave speaks about when he's been in battle and he's been with his comrades in battle. This presence of being. We are all a presence of being. We're it right now. What is a presence of being? Fuck knows. I don't know. I haven't got a clue. It's bigger than anything my little intellect can wrap its head around. It's before humanity. But it is humanity. It's every single thing. It's an eternal space of creation.
It was interesting watching the girl that's been in the news a lot from the Olympics, who did fantastically in the last Olympics as the gymnastic stuff. And you watch her in that one and you can there's like just a flow. It's like she's not even, there's nothing else on her mind but what she's doing. And then this time she's dropped out of the Olympics because you start getting fear.
What's it called?
There's a
Twisties.
Twisties. There's a name for it, but you can see it's almost like as soon as you start thinking, like if you watch what she's doing, you'd think like it's impossible, some of the stuff. But as soon as you think about what you're doing, you can't do it. And I was listening to her and I was thinking, it seems like what's happened is she's suddenly got a lot on her mind, or she's had a scare and then worried it's going to happen again. And she's dropped out. And you watch her in the one from 4 years ago, and even her first competition at this one, there isn't anything on her mind. She's just in the flow, in the movement. And then suddenly she's got all this stuff in her mind and she can't do it, and she's dropped out. And it's one, I went to adult gymnastics classes and we had to do like loads of basic things. And one of them was to do like a jump on this trampoline and do a flip and land in loads of foam. And I did it the first time and she goes, "Oh, that was good. You need to do it slightly more like this, otherwise you could break your neck." And then every other time I tried to do it, I'd run to the point where you're supposed to jump, and then I'd just run through. And I never did it again because it was just on my, I could break my neck. I could break my neck and I couldn't do it again. So you can see how when I had nothing on it and I wasn't thinking about it, I just did it very easily. But then as soon as I started thinking about technique and that I could kill myself or break my neck, I couldn't do it anymore. So you see how powerful our mind is in either direction, and how that presence is where we're creative and able and can go beyond what we think is possible. And it isn't like watching that young girl in the gymnastics, like you can see she's got the skill, she's able to do it, she's been doing it since she was a kid, and then suddenly her mind's engaged and had a thought, and now she can't do it. It was just so interesting seeing the difference.
And I think this comes back to Dave's point as well. If that girl could not have that thought, she would.
You just don't think that.
Just don't think it. Just don't think it. Just don't think it. And this is something we hear a lot in the principles, is like, oh, just stop thinking it. No. It's not about changing your thoughts. It's about waking up to the nature of thought. Waking up to its character. Because if you wake up to the character of thought, you'll realize it's entirely neutral. Thought can create either direction. It can create hell or it can create heaven. It's an infinite thing. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's not based in the physical world, like how we see the physical world, which is something is born and something dies, something is created and something is destroyed. It is eternal. It is eternally infinite. You can never get to the end of thought. We'll always come up with new ideas. We'll always find a way to improve something or invent a solution to a problem. In fact, invent the problem for the solution. We'll eternally do that. There's not much else you can consider that is eternally infinite. But we are that eternally infinite. That must make us something very, very special and something very different to what we actually think we are. That eternal infinite is coursing through our being. That eternal infinite is our being. That eternal infinite creative force is our being. We're doing it right now. It's creating whatever it's creating for us right now. It doesn't see the polarity because it is the polarity. It is right and wrong, but to itself, it is only it. There is only it. In the eternal, infinite, there is only that. Those are aspects, those are characteristics, those are flavors created within it, are right and wrong, good and bad. It should be like this, it should be less like that. These are all what it does. It creates those experiences. So therefore, every experience is exactly the same thing in disguise. Therefore, life isn't what we think it is, but it is exactly what we think it is. Life is whatever we think. That is how it will show up. But it is not what we think it is. Thought, the reason why I can't know anything about life is because I cannot know what thought is. I cannot know what thought is. I cannot know what consciousness is. Consciousness and thought. What is thought? Thought is what consciousness does. What is consciousness? This is why these sages and wise people have said, I know I'm wise, for I know nothing. There's something special. I know, Mark, it hit you one day when you realised this, when you realised you know nothing. Can you talk about that? I remember it being a big point for you when you realised that.
Yeah, it's when we went to that. We went to that Buddhist place, and she was that woman, the what they call the
finger.
As Colette says, the finger. So she was talking about
cars.
Yeah, she was talking about cars and how a car broke down, and that she saw this woman that was going really mad about it. But she said the whole nature of things is that cars break down, and it just hit me like, yeah, we think we know how everything's going to go. That, you know, this shouldn't happen, that shouldn't happen. But I just realised you don't know anything. You assume that you know things are going to happen, and when you assume something's going to happen, usually that's what gives you the pain, because when it doesn't go the way you expect it to. That's the grief that you make yourself. So I just thought, well, we don't know anything, and it just cleared up loads of stuff for me. And my dad was right. I don't know anything. He used to say that all my life. Well, yeah, it's true. So, and if you just stop expectations and stuff all the time, just go with the flow, it makes life a lot easier.
Is a beautiful realization when you realize you don't know anything.
That I'm thick.
You're thick, Mark, but you don't even know you're thick. That's the beautiful thing. Yeah, you do. You're not that thick.
I need to start worrying. When I get as thick as you, I've had it.
I had to think what the hell you said, because that sounded something totally different inside my head for a moment.
I can't.
That's because you're thick.
When I get as thick as you, I'll be worried. I thought you said when I get as stiff as you, I'll be worried.
So it's on your mind, isn't it?
No. Could you tell? But yeah, it's sorry.
Stop looking there.
Sorry, Mum. It's just what your mum at the other side of the table at this point.
And I think as well, you know, when you say you don't know, you kind of give up. So you kind of think, I don't know what to do here. And then all of a sudden you give everything up and all the trying and let it all go. And then it's like you've stopped shaking the snow globe because you don't know, you've stopped shaking it and it all settles, and then you've got clarity, and then something pops in your head and you know what to do. I find that's what happens when I just give up and I say, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what both of you have said just then. It is a really interesting thing to consider. Is it true what I'm thinking? Thought is an infinite thing. Is it possible I could look at this from another point of view? Is it possible I could see this from a different angle? If the answer is yes, which it always is it possible I could have a different experience of this? Absolutely, for eternity. Then the experience that we're living in cannot be truth. It can just be a potential within an infinite amount of potentials. And I think this is why Sid spoke about truth a lot, because we mistaken to be truth what we think, as opposed to that eternal state of everywhere a presence that Dave was speaking about. That stuff that doesn't go anywhere. That stuff that's there the moment we're born, that stuff that's there when we're 5, 10, 15, graduating university, if we went there, if we didn't go there, whatever, now. That we've mistaken that true essence of, as Jesus called it, I am. I amness. I am the state before we add a label to the end of it. I am tired. I am depressed. I am anxious. I am happy. I am hungry. I am fed up. I am suicidal. I am anorexic. I am an addict. I am. The eternalness of who we are, I am. The presence that is there before we stick a label on and then misidentify that I am for the label, for the idea, for the concept. Marky Mark, I'm just going to open the door. Fire, Mark.
So when you're saying I am, just reminds me of something that what someone was saying even if you forgot, even if you had like memory loss and you didn't even know your name or where you lived, anything like that, there's one thing you would know. You still say, I am. If it was, you know, you couldn't remember where you lived, what your name was, but if you were frightened, you still say, I am frightened, because that bit never goes away, because that's the bit that's God, that's with us all the time. And every time we're saying, I am this, I am that, you're affirming it to yourself. You're affirming it to God, because you are, that's the God, that's you, that's I am. So when we say, oh, I'm frightened, well, that's why, because you say, I am frightened. It's not Mark's frightened, it's the am. But the I am is the God that never changes. That's the bit. That's constant all the times. Even if you forgot your memory, you still know I am.
And everybody is that I am.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus was crucified, apparently. He said, before Abraham, I am. And it was taken that, oh, before Abraham, Jesus is. That wasn't what he was saying. He was saying, before Abraham, I am. Before the story, before the character, before the creation of Abraham, I am. Forever. I am eternal. I am eternity.
I am that I am.
I am that I am. And you see that all these mystics, and they sounded like utter riddles back in the past. But when you start to break it down, you realize they're actually talking common sense. They were talking common sense. They were talking a fact. And this fact was applicable to every single person on earth, every single thing on earth. We mistaken ourselves for experiences. We mistaken ourselves for feelings, for thoughts, for words, for names. That's the ego. That's the illusion of who we are. It's the illusory state of who we are. But that's the thing. If you speak to people, who are you? Tell me about yourself. They will tell you a history. They'll tell you what's happened to them in the past or their aspirations for the future. I'm a tree surgeon, ex-tree surgeon. I'm a this, I'm that, I'm Dave, I'm male, I'm 41, I'm blah, 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 blah. It's all a story. It's all a story. It's not who and what we are. Who and what we are is something far more magical, far more mystical, far more beautiful, far more perfect, far more connected, far more capable. It's like you were saying with the gymnast, the moment she gets in her head, she can't do it. I've had tons of experiences of that kind of thing. Walking. Right, we're going to film you walking. I start walking like a velociraptor or something. I can't walk properly. It's like, if I'm not, nobody's told me they're filming me walking. I'm filmed every day walking down the street on all these street cameras.
That is actually how you normally walk.
Is it? Oh, I do know I have a funny walk. But it's like, you just get on with it. It's like driving. The moment you start thinking about driving, it becomes quite complicated. Don't think about driving.
It's like when I said to you, which one's the brake? And you're like, oh my God.
That was a very scary
I was
moment.
very tired and I hadn't driven in about 2 months. And we'd been using, when I had driven before, it'd been just once or twice with the automatic in South Africa. And I just suddenly had this mental block and you're like, just pull over and I'll drive. Just pull over and I'll drive.
Please. Em, would you talk about your experience of driving?
Yeah, so I've been scared of driving like since I was younger, and it took me ages to pass because I was so in my head every time I got in the car. I was just like, I can't do it, and I like just massively overthinking everything. And I've literally just finished an intensive course with Jenny and Dave, and I went to visit them in Pedmarsh, and it was really funny because I just got in the car and I just have Dave's little voice in my head, just like, you're not scared of driving, you're scared of a fault. Like it's just a fault, that's all it is. And I just got in the car and just drove. all the way to see like you guys, and it was just really nice because I was like, I'm doing it. and that was it. And it was just like we followed you guys to CAF. I didn't know the area, I didn't know anything. Yeah, and I've never been able to do that. Like even to places I know, I've always been like, right, get out Google Map and plan it out and like really, really in my head about it and think, oh God, even to the point where sometimes if I knew I was going places, I'd be like, right, I'll go the night before and I'll check I know where I'm going. So yeah, it was really nice. And I have, after meeting like you guys, it's like I've got you on each shoulder sometimes when I'm doing it, and it's just like, it's just a fault. It's just a fault. Yeah.
Who's the devil?
Yeah.
I loved it as well when you Emma and her mum were up here. We went on quite a few walks and did some open water swimming, and you said you'd been quite in your head on the way up. It was quite a bit of it was only a short walk, but it was very uphill. And then we got there and the water was a lot colder than the previous day's water that we've been in. And you said it's like all the thoughts you'd had in your head and judgments and stuff vanished, and it was just like, it is freezing, and that's all you could think. And you learned from that, like, wow, it can disappear that quickly, and it seems so important.
Yeah, that was really nice. And it's like I've been trying to find lakes and stuff around here, but I can't find any because it's like you're so in there, and you get to that moment where you think it's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. And then, we got in the water and it was just like, oh, it's gone away. It was really nice. Really nice.
See how permanent this all is. We were speaking with somebody last week, and he said he'd had depression for 33 years. I'm like, really? We've seen you smile today. Where was your depression when you were smiling? You know, in that moment, where is your suffering when you are enjoying that, whatever you were enjoying? Where is it? You just see it's all a temporary experience. The fact of experience is not temporary. But the flavor it takes on, the feeling states, the comings and goings of our experiences, they're not permanent, and they never will be. They never, ever will be. It's impossible. It doesn't exist like that. That's not the nature of creator. The nature of creator doesn't create the same experience forever because it would be eternally boring for it. It creates infinite experiences. And what we're talking about is this re-identification of self. We innocently mistaken ourselves for our experiences. And we add onto the back of I am infinite amount of things.
You can see why, like, clearing up that what we're not allows you just to be. And like the guy you were speaking about, he thought, yeah, I was laughing, but I'm with you, it's you guys. So if you misunderstand experience and you think it can be given to you, or he felt right because we were there, you see how you're going to be afraid. And you see if that one belief, that one misunderstanding that we are affected, that we're not creators and creative, will constantly trip us up. And I think it was so interesting to see. It didn't matter how many moments of, because he tuned my guitar for me, because I'm trying to learn the guitar, and he started playing and he loved the sound of the strings, and he got lost in doing that for a bit. And then as soon as he put it down, it was like right back into.
And we handed him a stone. And
right back into depression. But you can see how he thinks that the guitar can create that moment for him. Then he'd always need a guitar. So that one misunderstanding will make you feel like you are puppeted and you are thrown around by life. Whereas if you can get to the like root cause of suffering, and it is that misidentification with a character and a creation, and not knowing what we are, that we are the creative force, And so you can't, until that's cleared up, you'll continually feel thrown around by life, and you'll feel victim and powerless.
Not good enough.
And it's like all those things come from it. But it was even like seeing for him, like it's still not good for him really to then play the guitar, because he then thinks it's the guitar that makes him feel good, or it's us that can give him a feeling. And you realize that's why people have to see it for themselves, that there is nothing outside of the experience we create. There is nothing outside of that for us that does it. It's like it is inside, because then you suddenly start feeling that power. Like, I have the power to create a beautiful life. I have the power to experience all feelings, create them, live them. And I think
back to that I again.
Yeah. And I think when we worked out in South Africa, the thing that I loved the most in the feedback from, we worked in a charity that is within one of the townships in Cape Town. And afterwards, it was mostly women, wasn't it? But they was like, we feel so powerful.
We feel so much love.
And they'd felt like victims and almost been told they were victims. And it was this feeling of like, whoa, this is what I've been creating. This is what I've been doing to myself. What else?
The world hadn't changed. The world was still, South Africa was still South Africa, but these people's experience of South Africa changed in a very short period of time.
And their experience of us changed in a short time.
Yeah, and their experience of other Black people within their community in different parts of Africa, different xenophobia towards different people.
I think that was what's so nice. You could see that nothing in their external environment changed. They gained a deeper respect and understanding for something permanent, like their true nature. And then suddenly their whole life looked different. Their past looked different. Like, some of them came to peace with some of the most horrific things that had happened to them. They just found this peace. And it wasn't that anything had to change. I think that's what was so nice with that group particularly, because it was just 3 days in this tiny little room where we thought it was going to be hot in South Africa. It isn't in July. No. So all around this tiny little heater.
Just because it's hot in the UK in July does not mean it's hot in South Africa.
Yeah, you need to
get
a sense
it's
of
the other end of the planet, isn't it?
But it's
crazy.
It was amazing to see how when they dropped the false belief of what they thought life was, suddenly they just got filled with so much insight and compassion and forgiveness, and we were blown away by them.
And that's what happens. That's just what.
And a bit like Dave was saying, like, when you do speak to people that have had experiences that in your mind you kind of like, oh my God, how could you not just feel terrified or awful, and they say, actually no, I felt so present and alive. You realize that it's inside. We take it with us, and then we cover it up, but it's available in any moment. Like Sydney Banks would say, you're one thought away from happiness and you're one thought away from sadness in any moment.
Marky Mark.
Dave was just tapping you with a pencil. I
So
haven't seen you.
That's the thing, we don't realise how powerful we are, and that when I realised that every single thing that's ever happened to me in my life, I created. No one else. It's all, even the good and the bad, it's all down to me, no one else. And when you realise that you are the creator of everything, the I that creates all things, just because of the way I think and the way the internal voice in the head says, I can't do this, or I am that, I'm not this, I'm impossible to do that, I can do this now. And that constantly is just creating your life. And when you realise that it's down to you and no one else, and how powerful we all are, it just, that's what changes your life. We're so powerful that we don't believe it. And when you see that for yourself, that you created every single thing in your life, good and bad, has been caused by you, that's the power. Poof, straight away. And we've all got that. It's not just me, it's everybody. And we're limitless, thinking we're limited. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Finger.
Beautiful, mate.
It's finger that, isn't it? It's finger that.
Finger. No, it's absolutely, it's beautiful, Mark. Thank you, man. David, you unmuted. Do you want to say something?
I was going to just say, you know, that the unfortunate thing, certainly in our society, is the belief that we experience the outside world. And therefore, when people get given the glimpse of that complete peace in terms of clarity of mind, despite what chaos might be going on, they think that it's the event that they were part of that then is the thing that gave them that clarity. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you know the guys and girls are tormented, because they think that peace of mind is only ever going to come in the most difficult and unpleasant of places, and they can't be there. They can't recreate that in their peaceful environment. You know, it's a little bit like thinking, you know, with that analogy you came up with of the cold water and your mind clearing. You might think that it's the cold water that's done that, when actually no, your mind's just cleared because at the moment it's concentrating on, you need to breathe, you need to get control of that, because otherwise you're going to, you know, things are going to cause problems for you. It's got nothing to do with the water, it's got everything to do with your experience of that shock that's creating that space for you. But it's not the water. You could still be just as caught up in your head, or not. You know, soldiers will completely fall apart in complete chaos, and some of them won't. And no two events are going to be the same. So one day you might be calm, and the next day you might not be. A little bit like the gymnast. You know, she's amazing at what she does until she's stuck in her head, and that's the same for everyone. We've got the capacity to be completely clear and completely free and live in the moment, and we have just as much capacity as to fill our head with awkward stuff that's going to get in our way. And knowing that that is the truth in any situation, no matter where we are, is amazing, because we can catch onto it. We can catch onto it, and we're then not harking back, looking for something, that trying to recreate a set of conditions to recreate that feeling, because the feeling's us. It is us, as you said. You know, with that comment earlier, Dave. You know, is it yes or no to how I'm going to experience this? Well, no, it's the always bit. There isn't a yes or a no. It's just always. If you think there's a yes and a no, there's still a choice. It's always calm underneath that veil of thought.
That's
Yeah,
right.
nicely put.
Beautiful, Dave. We often liken that calmness, those who come and work with us quite often see us do this, to an ocean. It's like speaking to a diver, and he was telling me when he gets 10 meters down into the ocean, he gets in the water and it's stormy, getting thrown around, waves bashing him around, descends 10 meters below the surface, and he sits there and he says it's just stillness, just total stillness. And I think like the ocean is a really beautiful analogy for the experience of life. Below the turmoil of the surface that we get to experience on a day-to-day basis, is this eternal stillness. It's what everybody's searching for. Everybody's just looking for peace and stillness. But like Dave said, we go in search of it in an external world, thinking that events create experiences, events create the stillness. There is no event that creates stillness.
I always remember thinking, whenever I'd go for a run, it would clear my head. So then that started being a thing that I'd do to clear my head. And I always remember I'd probably ran for about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, and I was still like grinding over whatever it was I was stressed about. And like the disappointment, but then the insight, like it was never the run, like it wasn't the run, but it was that kind of, we innocently do that. And I'd been around the principles a good 4 or 5 years at that point, and I'd still just always use my runs to clear my head. And then I was like, it's not working today. And you see that as soon as we think it's something we have to do, we're saying we're not already it. And then we will get humbled, because you'll have those times when it doesn't work. where you get in the cold water and all you can think about is how terrible you are, or how this we are, or whatever it was that goes on in our head. And I think it's kind of, I remember the moment of being deflated, but then the moment of like, wow, like this really is inside. It really did come from within me. I don't have to be able to go for a run. And I'll never forget, I asked Gabriella Maldonado Montano, who shares this in prisons and juvenile hall. And I was asking her, like, who's been one of your most kind of amazing people to work with? And she spoke about a young girl who had gone to juvenile hall for attempted murder. And then she was turning 18, I think. So she was going to the adult prison. And for some reason, she was going to have to be in isolation for a certain amount of time. I think it was a month, 2 weeks or a month. And Gabriella went to see her just before she was transferring. And she had a chat with her, talked to her. And inside, when she left, she's like, how is this kid going to cope? She knows what people look like when they come out of isolation. She was just like, how is this kid going to cope? And then she got to see her within a week of coming out of isolation. And she said, in walked this kid, and she was just bright and smiling and so pleased to see her.
It's colourful skin.
Yeah, she said her skin was still full of colour. And she was like, oh, did you not have to do the isolation? She goes, oh, no, I did. And she was like, how are you looking so well? And she said, well, Gabriella, you told me I was all right no matter what. You told me that. And like, you've been telling me that. And Gabriella said she like nearly burst into tears, because she just said she realised she had her exception of like, oh God, but this kid in isolation, she's not going to be all right. And seeing how all right she was, she said it was almost like that penny dropping again, like what Sid was trying to point to was true. This is inside. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't leave us even in isolation. And I remember just sitting after that interview. I think it's still on Innate Evolution in the interview section with Gabriella speaking about it. But just sitting afterwards for about 10 minutes, not really being able to speak, because you could see how much that had meant to Gabriella. And I was kind of struck by how many limits I can still put on whether I'm feeling well or not, whether I've had the right amount of sleep or the right type of food, and how we're constantly saying there's something we need to be in place for us to be okay. And we all do it to different degrees, but it was that moment of like, wow, it's not true. Like that stillness, that depth of ocean doesn't go anywhere, regardless of what's going on in the surface, and it can be realized in any moment. But it was, yeah, she's got many cool stories, but that was just the one that I never forgot.
I think when you start to get a feel for this, it starts to put life back in on its rightful plinth. It starts to put life back up on its pedestal where it belongs. You start to realize that this experience is a magical event. It's an inexplicably magical event. It's perfect at all times. The idea of perfect and imperfect, or right and wrong, good or bad. When I say perfect, I'm not talking of a judgment of it's correct, or no, correct is not the right word I should use either. I'm not saying it's good or bad, should I say, when I'm saying perfect. I'm saying that no matter what we are experiencing, it is perfect. No matter what the world is doing, it is perfect. It doesn't look like it to us, because we're human beings and we have our prejudices and our biases, and we have our likes and we have our dislikes, and we have our rights and we have our wrongs. But if you were to step back into the eyes of Creator, you would see it's all the same thing. You are the eyes of Creator. That's what we're wanting people to wake up to, because that's where the freedom's found. It sounds like a mysterious, mystical bullshit and thing to talk about. It sounds like the most pointless fucking thing on the planet until it happens to you and you realize it's true. Then it suddenly becomes the most powerful ally you have, and you realize you are your powerful ally. You are it. And the only thing that has separated us between this peaceful, beautiful, loving state of being and what we perceive to be ourselves is a bunch of beliefs. It's a bunch of thoughts. A misidentification again of there is an external reality to which we're subjected. And I think when we start to wake up to this point, it sounds too simple, it sounds too simplistic, and it doesn't make sense until it makes sense. But once it starts to make sense, once it starts to become realized, either bit by bit or all at once, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's all the same thing anyway. Life becomes better. The experience starts to change. You start to view life with new perspective. And with this new perspective comes a new reality, because the perspective of life is our reality. As we transcend through consciousness, if you want to say that, as our consciousness becomes more elevated, as we become more open-minded, another way of saying it, thought changes too. New opportunities arise within thought that we were previously closed off to, because as Jesus Christ said time and time again, it is done unto you as you believe. It is done unto you as you believe. It is done unto you as you believe. Whatever you believe, that is correct. It'll be your reality. That will be how you will see the world. That is how it will be done unto you. It is done unto you how you think. This is the only thing we're ever up against, a thought. But it doesn't look like it because it's reality. It's a dream state. That's why the mystics have said that they've called it the dream of life. It's a divine dream. And it truly is. Sometimes it's nightmares, and sometimes it's beautiful dreams. But it's all the same thing. The nightmare is made of the same thing that the beautiful dream is made of. It's all the same thing. When we wake up and realize what the dreamer is, it's ourself, you find yourself sat in a serious position of power. Understanding, forgiveness is something that comes a lot easier because you understand that the dream that somebody else is experiencing, or perhaps the dream that we once dreamt that looks so real, or the dream that the other person's dreaming that looks so real, it's just the same thing as what we do. That's where that whole thing, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. People don't know it's a dream. People don't know that reality is taking place through them and not happening to them. So as long as we live in that misunderstanding, we will never know. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. No, they don't. Most people don't. Much of the time, I don't. And I think that's the nice thing. This isn't about staying in this space of awareness eternally. This is just having awareness of it and then going out and living. What do you truly want to do with your life? Not just sitting there going, oh, I know this is just a thought. I know in your shitty relationship, which we see time and time again. I'm not saying everybody's got a shitty relationship here, but we see people time and time again in relationships that obviously just do not work. Sitting there, and they've been doing it for years going, but I know the principles. I know it's just a thought. No, don't do that. Know it's thought and go and live, and know you cannot get it wrong. You can just learn and learn and learn. And you will only ever make a decision on the knowledge or thought that you have in the moment. Full stop. It's a beautiful thing. It's an important thing. But it's also not important if you're not interested. But if you're interested, it's so important to wake up to. If you want a nicer life, then it's important to wake up to. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. But once you start to wake up to it, life just becomes simpler. Fear starts to die. Not necessarily fear itself, but the fear of fear. You'll still experience your fears. You'll have your hang-ups and worries and anxieties. Get caught up from time to time. Thanks, David, lad. But once you know what it is, not having to undergo the fear of fear time and time again, worry about worry. I think it was Rudy said, there's more full stops and less commas. I feel like shit today, full stop, not comma. And because it's this, or this, and so therefore I'm going to have to do this, comma, blah, 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 comma. Just feel like shit, full stop right now. And the ease in that. And the flow that comes when you put full stops instead of commas. The sentence becomes shorter. In both senses of the term. Mark, Colette, thank you for sharing. Ange, thanks for sharing, love. Em, thanks for sharing. And Lise, remember, you're a womble. I'm going to look that up and I'm going to send it to you.
Can I just say one thing that's just come up? Hold on. Wait.
My name is Janice.
And in the beginning, there was nothing. And then God said, let there be light. And there was still nothing, but you could see a lot better. Oh, just somebody. It just made me giggle. I was like, oh, this is going to be so profound. You know, in the beginning, there was nothing. And then God said, let there be light. And then there was still nothing, but you could see a lot better. I just thought that was just nice. Anyway, a funny thing to end on. Thanks for a great call.
Thank you.
Lise, thanks for joining us.
All right.
And thanks everybody for sharing. Thanks to everybody who didn't and came. Yeah, Al. No. What's Al's husband? This is terrible.
Oh.
Alan, yeah, of course it is.
That's why I thought you was I'm like,
yeah, no, don't forgive me. I'm having a terrible night tonight. How the hell do you forget that? Alan, thanks for joining us, man.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, mate. Thank you so much. Kelly, you look like you've gone back to the early 2000 camera phone. Thanks for joining us. I think it must be the low light.
I don't know what's happened. It's got quite dark in here. Thank you for tonight. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
See you soon. Kendra, thanks for joining us, love. And Karen, thank you for being our international support tonight. Stop recording.